me again today. Today is March 4th, Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Hump day. We are into the middle of the week. Another day, another talk. Today's talk focuses on fear impacts change. Specifically, if nothing changes, why are you still looking for it? Right? So people complain about nothing ever changes, but then they expect change, right? But they don't go about initiating change or looking for ways to enact change or just ensuring that change occurs, right? Especially within the workplace, especially within society as overall, this is one of the questions that leaders never can answer and answer clearly. We're always speaking about the changes that we're looking for in society and in the workplace, but changes never seem to occur. There's changes, but it's never meeting the goals that we have desired. And that's because change requires something that is most important, something that many leaders cannot do. And that's letting go of control, being comfortable with not micromanaging, being comfortable with allowing people to do the hard work without their necessary oversight, their input, or their involvement. Allowing people and their ideas to, guide the direction, without them being in charge, without them controlling the situation or feeling as though they have to oversee and stand over and direct and dictate and just navigate every process and every policy that's being implemented and every initiative that is being enacted. And that comes from fear. Fear hinders that. Fear hinders the need to know everything or to assume you know everything because you are in control and overseeing and just being a nuisance. Because being in control doesn't mean you're in control. It's just your assumption because you're always looking. So if you're always looking, then people are going to do what they think you want them to do. It doesn't mean that you are controlling or navigating or actually managing a situation. It's like yesterday's talk focused on management versus leadership. And that's where change comes or it doesn't come. And it's not because you're managing it correctly. It's more because you're focused on the fear of it not occurring. That fear is what's driving the need to micromanage. There's the need for you to just be unable to, as a leader, for them to be unable to just really allow whatever is unknown to occur and happen. That's one of the hardest things that leaders are afraid to admit. Even managers, because managers have the assumption of what is supposed to occur. Because managers, their goal is to uphold the system and ensure the processes are going through. So they're not there to lead or guide or even worry about how you're feeling. They're just there to cross the T's and dot the I's. Make sure everything is happening as it's supposed to happen. And if so, why not? But when we're looking at true leaders and leaders looking to navigate some form of change, you can only do that if you're fearless. You cannot inspire others if you are fearful or constantly worrying about what is going to happen or what is not going to happen. That's the difference because a manager is only fearing if those goals are going to be achieved. They're not focused on anything else. But a leader is focused on how they're going to inspire others to enact that change, to move change forward, to inspire others, to allow others to be more confident, to allow them to even recognize their potential, not just by their experience, but their potential. And that's where one another thing that holds change back because we focus more on the understanding of experience versus potential. All of these things are aligned with fear. That fear that people hold, that fear of losing power, that fear of, the idea of superiority, right? The fear of being wrong. That's a major one. The fear of being wrong and being unable to just accept when you're wrong. That fear that comes from that, too, of having to hold yourself accountable because you were wrong. And that accountability in itself is a recognition that you are not perfect. When, mind you, being perfect and perfection is an illusion, it is not real. So, just to have that fear that something is not real, the illusion of perfection shows the unwillingness to like really have that form of self improvement and just the elevation to recognize when you're wrong. So, all of these are rooted in the fear of why change never occurs. And as I asked the question earlier, if nothing changes, why are you still looking for it? That means that you're recognizing that you have to make that change. That change does need to occur, but you have to be able to walk in that fear of what's necessary for change to occur. So it's very interesting how we can hold ourselves back, right? And not recognizing the fear that we have, or we recognize the fear that other people have, right? So that's why I got the image behind me, because it's like, these are things that we go through in life and we're not really aware of, or we're aware of it, but we don't take the necessary steps to move forward, right? So we got to all have that face about ourselves. And, I got to move through here a little more smoothly in life to be a true leader and to inspire others, because the only way for us to do that, right, is to constantly ourselves and recognize when we need to move forward and have the changes not only within our lives but in society and within our workspaces, right? We have to always look at things from a critical eye. That and when we see things ain't going right, then we need to move forward and as leaders in ourselves to make sure that the change is happening. You can't go about focusing on what needs to be done when you're not taking the necessary actions, and when we're doing that, we're holding ourselves back. But when we look at leaders that are upholding these suppressive or just ways of where change needs to occur, and how we look at leaders that are not enacting the change, or managers, because just because you're in a leadership position, because you're in a leadership position, doesn't mean you're a manager. Doesn't mean you're a leader. There a lot of people are out here managing and not qualified as leaders. They don't know how to inspire truly and drive true change. They're just in positions. They're holding up a system. So that change will not occur. And that's something that we have to recognize as well. That's a lot of what is going on within the workplace and within society. It's in that position because of the fear of losing power, the fear of being wrong, the same decisions, the same titles, the same hierarchies, the same initiatives, the same people blocking the need for change, the same cycles continuing over and over and over. And this is what really drove me to even start doing these talks and kind of being more active here on YouTube, because these conversations need to be had. The inspiration needs to be driven forward for people to recognize, how do we go about eradicating these disruptions to change, these weird differences that come about to hinder and even sabotage and block when change is needed. How we're losing the battle. How are you losing the battle when going about it, right? And that's the understanding of knowing that change doesn't fail because people don't want it. It doesn't. Change fails because people with the power are afraid for what that change is going to cost them. They're afraid of what that change will look like. Will it highlight their weaknesses? Highlight where they fall short? Will it strengthen people that they necessarily don't want to be strengthened? These are the hard questions that we need to ask. Why isn't anything changing? What is hindering the change? What is that? Who's causing it? Why is it being caused? Why are we stuck in a hamster wheel of nothing ever occurring, nothing moving forward? Who is holding that system in place? Why are they holding that system in place? What do we need to do to disrupt that and shift it into the right direction? These are the questions that we need to ask. How do we go about ending the constant cycle so that change can occur? So that those that are in power can not prevent change from occurring, be due to loss of power or just what's going to cost them. Because the only way for us to move forward is to do that. And that, again, as I say, the main question for today, if nothing changes, why are you still looking for it? What are you going to do about it? How are you going to go about the change? It can't occur if we're not looking to confront it. And if it's not going to occur, if we're not looking to understand what needs to be relinquished, what type of controls need to be redirected, what new languages need to be implemented, new decisions need to be implemented, the shifts in hierarchy, what new solutions and initiatives need to be implemented, what blockages need to be removed, what cycles need to be ended. Those are the questions that need to be asked. Only then will we be able to answer the question, if nothing's changing, why are you still looking for it? And that is connected to the fear, because fear impacts change, because fear stifles movement. It stifles, even the willingness for accountability. So we always got to go about looking at the situation like, what's going on here? What do we need to do to move forward? How are we going to go about moving forward? Who's going to be held accountable? And are they really going to be held accountable? Or are we just going to pretend to hold accountable? Because that's one thing that constantly goes on in society and in workspaces, is the lack of accountability, the lack of actual movement and change, because of the unwillingness to reprimand and call a thing, and to highlight what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done, and where the middle and the gray area is, and what that gray area represents. Because you can't jump on both sides. You can't have a gray area, especially when you're looking for, true transformation. That focuses on really, really understanding the need to relinquish power, their need to relinquish control, to be uncomfortable. Complacency is not going to lead you to change. Comfort is not change. Change is uncomfortable. Change is scary. Change for many is terrifying. But if you're unwilling to face it, then why are you still looking for it? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Because only then will you be able to be the change. Because then you're able to recognize that change needs to occur and what change needs to occur. That's how you move forward. That's the key to transformation. That's the key to a new world. That's what it is. And you have to be willing to step forward and do that. Only then. And that's within organizations, that's within society, that goes for everything. You will not move forward, and the world will not move forward, and new opportunities won't be available if we aren't able to face change. And you can only do that by being fearless, because fear impacts change. And fear is contagious, but so is being courageous. So when you are courageous, others will be courageous as well. That's the key, and that's the question for today. If nothing changes, why are you still looking for it? That's something you need to look at. Just like the image says, what do you need to confront? What do you need to look at that's hindering you from being successful? That's hindering you from achieving your goals? That's hindering whatever changes need to be happening within your society where you live, your community, within your family, anywhere in your life. What is that? That's the question you need to ask yourself so that you can not live in this comfort, but step into this discomfort of change, the moving about and the actions that are required, the new ideas, the fear of losing power. Does that mean that? Letting go, fear of being wrong. All of these things are highlights of why change never occurs. Why change is always an issue within the workspace. We already know change means someone's losing their job. Change means someone's being called out for doing their job wrong. Change means leadership is not aligned with what the direction of the business and the alignment with what employees need. The solutions that are being implemented, they're not aligned with ensuring that they are positively influencing or having a positive impact on employees. That's first and foremost. Any decision that is being made within the workplace or in society as a whole, it should be benefiting the human. Because the human is why the human, are why the world exists. We are the reason for all these businesses and all of this. But for some reason, we forget that we matter. And we should be the focal point for every decision that's made, for every idea within society and within the business, and how it's being impacted, and only impacted in a positive way, not negative. That's never really even a thought. And this is why change never moves. Because as I said, systems are in place and people are designed to be in those systems to uphold what is there to prevent the change. So I ask again, if nothing changes, why are you still looking for it? Because change needs to occur. So be the change. And with that, I leave you this evening. Thank you for joining me. And don't forget, love yourself and others. Bye.